We're in the wheelhouse. Frankie Fibro, stay with me. This is the book I'm going to hold up, George, as you bring us on camera. This is called Trump and the Jews by David Rubin, former mayor of Shiloh, Israel. David, thank you for coming on. I know you're off to Fox to see Stuart Varney, who we love. Give Stuart my best. Welcome to the show, my friend.
I will do that.
And thanks for signing the book, man. This is great. It says, to Dear Joe, blessings and shalom, David Rubin. This is so overdue. The president is not, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, the president is not getting the credit he deserves on reaching out to the state of Israel.
Well, he's been getting a very bad rap, especially from the Jewish community. And, I was very concerned about that, and I could see, number one, he promised things having to do with the state of Israel, doing away with the Iran nuclear deal, which would have brought Israel.
Thank you.
Which would have brought nuclear weapons on Israel within a few years. He promised to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, which every president, or virtually every president, has promised to do on the campaign trail. He went forward and he did it. And so you could add to that more recent things like closing the PLO office in Washington, Palestine Liberation Organization's office in Washington, which has been acting as a shadow embassy for years. So Trump has made promises having to do with Israel, and he has fulfilled those promises. And I think it's time he gets credit.
And he's got the courage to make Jerusalem the capital. How wild! How courageous was that?
Well, you may remember, Joe, that when he
I'm
said
old.
that
I remember everything, Dave.
It only take us back a couple of months.
Yeah, okay, all right.
But he said that he was going to do it before he got elected, and then he went ahead and did it after he was elected, and he got all the same pressures and threats from the Palestinians. We're going to be rioting in the streets, and we're going to create havoc and terrorism, which they do anyhow. And sure enough, he went ahead, he did it, he was resolute, and the riots and protests and all that, it was very minimal.
How is it over there in Jerusalem?
And in the Persian Gulf, the countries like Saudi Arabia and Bahrain are saying nice things about Israel. It just shows you that sometimes you have to do the right thing.
Yeah, and it's pretty much calm over there now in that area in Jerusalem that you see.
In Jerusalem, it's very calm right now. Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in Gaza right now, things are
what happened with that all of a sudden? The Palestinians started sending rockets over to Israel. That's what we're hearing.
Well, I think they were afraid that there might soon be a sort of a peace arrangement between Israel and Hamas, so that the Hamas terrorists and the Islamic Jihad terrorists and all the other terrorists that comprise the Palestinian authorities started to agitate a little bit, with just like 300 rockets on Israel in 24 hours, and so Israel is finally fighting back. Netanyahu, Prime Minister, gave the green light to the army to do what it needs to do to make a difference in Gaza and to stop the problem. I'm not sure that the order that was given is going to be as strong as it needs to be.
David Rubin, former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and he's got this new book called Trump and the Jews. So let me get into it now, because this has kind of been a mantra of me on the show. And I always, and you're listening, so you know this, so forgive me, I'm talking to you, but I was brought up with all Jewish kids down out of Philadelphia, right? And they would go and serve in the Israeli army, and I learned about services on Friday and on Saturday, and I came to love and respect and understand and appreciate the heritage of the Jewish religion. So I'm biased, and toward my love toward Israel and toward the Jews is something I make no apologies for, but I'm not perhaps objective as I should be. Am I missing something? Why is there this anti-Semitic rise on the left in Hollywood? In Hollywood, man, when you would have these great Jewish names that were these iconic symbols of the entertainment industry, there's an anti-Semitic rise, and then throughout this anti-Israel rise. What's happening? What am I missing here?
Well, anti-Semitism is a historical reality. We've always had it on the far right. There's always been the neo-Nazis and But the fact is that today's anti-Semitism is more from the far left, like groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and from the political radicals on the far left, like you heard Ocasio-Cortez, right? She came out with that ridiculous statement. She made a fool of herself. But she was just spouting the mantra of the far left.
Mantra,
And it has
exactly.
become a
Exactly.
mantra on the far left to view the so-called Palestinians as some great underdog cause, even though the reality is that they just invented themselves in 1964. Before that, there were no Palestinians. So let's just do away with that fiction. But the reality is that the anti-Semitism, the main anti-Semitism today, is coming from the Islamo-fascists and from the far left, and that's something that needs to be contended with. And the Democratic Party, I think, needs to wake up and look at the demons that are in its basement.
Some of those guys I grew up with, they're all die-hard Democrats. It's all Hillary this, Hillary that. And then I say exactly what you said, but the Democrats aren't supporting Israel like they used to. How could you vote as a Democrat? I say to my Jewish friends every day.
Well, Joe, I have a confession to make. Mm-hmm. I've been living in Israel for 27 years, but I grew up in a place called Brooklyn that you may have heard of.
There it is, man.
And yes, I grew up with all the Italians and the Jews in Brooklyn, and
great neighborhood.
And I know that the Italians were a lot more conservative than the Jews, and unfortunately, Jews, as they've become more and more secular, they've moved more and more to the left, and that's a great tragedy, because that the chosen people who received the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai don't seem to understand that there's anything special about being Jewish other than bagels and lox.
Yeah. David Rubin is the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel. This is the book right here. I'm holding it up online. Yes, thank you, George. It's called Trump and the Jews. Why do they call Donald Trump anti-Semitic? That, to me, is virtually comical. This is the guy. His child is converted. His grandchildren are Jewish. Jared Kushner is close to this man, the president of the United States, that you could get. What's with the anti-Semitic label on Donald Trump?
Well, in addition to that, President Trump has had very strong ties with Jewish community, very, very strong friends
his whole life
in the Jewish community. U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, there's a famous story about how when he had just started working for Donald Trump in the Trump organization as a lawyer, and his father died. His father passed away. His father was a rabbi in the Five Towns, and President Trump went in a blizzard. He drove out to the Five Towns to visit David Friedman, who was his lawyer.
Yeah.
And Friedman was so moved and so impressed by that. But there were so many stories. And why is he charged with anti-Semitism? Because the left has this reflex anger, this crazy rage that they can't control somehow, or they don't want to control.
Yeah.
And it's like the old Alinsky rules of radicals. That it's okay of the far left, that it's okay to lie and it's okay to deceive as long as you're going to help the cause. So throw some names at him, call him names, and fortunately he knows how to throw names back, because he comes from Queens, which is they have the Brooklyn schoolyard psychology in Queens.
David Rubin on his way to Fox, kind enough to stop by Piscopo in the morning. We appreciate that, Mr. Mayor, and the author of this new book that I hold in my hand, Trump and the Jews. Check it out, and you know what? If you're in the community, put this out in a storefront. Keep this out, Trump and the Jews. This is way overdue, and thank you for writing the book, David Rubin. You are welcome here anytime, my friend.
Well, thank you, Joe.
Appreciate it. All the very best to you. Thanks for stopping in to see us. I do appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. Al Gattulo standing by with the headline news right now on AM 970. The Answer.